All right, so now that we are almost to the end of, this is the bottom part of our mask. We're going to continue to keep sewing our back stitch, but now we're coming to a corner. So we want to make sure that we have that angle correct. So this would be equivalent to when we have our sewing machine and we come to a corner and we pivot. Okay, so now we're just changing direction a little bit and making sure, just like on this side, we've got that little bit of an angle. So we just change direction a little bit, and then we're coming to the end, and we keep back stitching. And again, we're going to finish with several knots. Oh. We're just going around our seam. And we have that loop, and then once we get to the loop, we're putting our needle through that loop. And then we're just going to clip the edge. All right, then we are finished sewing our top and our bottom seams of the mask. So now we need to go in and clip it in a few places, and then we'll get to turn it. Okay, so the first place you want to clip it is right where that corner was at. So again, only to the seam, not through the seam. I'm going to do it on the other side. And then because we have these curves, again, we want to clip the curves so that it turns and is flatter. Okay, so we're just going to where it started to curve, clipping to that seam line, not through it. And maybe about every 3/4 of an inch. Okay, now we are ready to turn our mask. Okay, so don't force this, just go really, really smoothly. So you're taking your finger and you're pushing the fabric so that it can come through the other side. Okay, just nice and slow. It's a small hole that you're pulling it through, and it will take a little bit of time. Okay, just nice and slow. So once you have it started, you'll be able to grab the fabric a lot easier. Okay, so then we're going to come through, once we have it turned, we are going to go to the edge of our seam. And we just kind of want to roll it a little bit so we can get it as flat as possible. Okay, so again, if you don't have a iron, you can just press it with your fingers just like this, and then keep going, and you're just kind of rolling it so that your seam is nice and flat. So you can do a pretty good job of just pressing it with your fingers. You don't have a iron. Okay, so I did that on the top. I'm going to push out that center seam. It's starting to look like a mask now, everybody. All right, and I'm going to do the same thing, just kind of rolling it and flattening it out with my fingers. So if you have an iron, you can press it, but if you don't, I think I did a pretty good job there, getting it all nice and pressed. Okay, we have a couple more steps. Okay, so our next step, we are going to turn it to the, so this is the inside of our mask. So some of you will have a different color. And we're just going to trim any loose threads that we might have. So we have a nice clean trim. Oh, I didn't do a very good job there. Sorry. You don't really want to cut anything off. I just kind of made a mistake there. So that's okay. And then we'll go to the other side. I'm going to trim any loose threads I have. Okay. So now on our pattern, we're going to go to the front side again. And we are going to take our chalk and we are going to mark 3/4 of an inch. So if you go the long way of our ruler, you'll be able to see that it's broken up. Each inch is broken up into quarters. Okay, so there's the first quarter, 2, 3, and then 4. So the seam allowance on this side piece is 3/4 of an inch. Okay, so we're just going to mark that. Okay. And then we are going to I'm going to mark the other side. So 3/4 of an inch. And then I'm just going to fold it, or you can press this too. And then I'm going to turn it to the other side. And I'm just going to put a few pins in there. Hold on a second. Okay. So we just want to fold over a little bit of that edge so that we have a nice clean edge. And then we're going to pin it. So by folding that little bit of the edge, the cut edge over, then it's not going to fray. Okay, otherwise, if we left it, it would eventually fray. So you can see how I can fray it. Okay, so again, I'm going to turn it and press that down if you like, if you have an iron. And I'm just going to turn just a tiny little bit, 1/8 of an inch, 1/4 of an inch on the cut edge. And then I'm going to put in my pins. Okay, now I'm ready to stitch that closed. Okay, so I'm going to bury my my knot inside. So I'm just going to start from the inside. Hopefully you can see that. And I'm going to come out. I just want to anchor this. So I'm going around again. And this is where my knot's going to start. So I'm going to go down around it 2 times. And I have that loop, and then I'm putting my needle through the loop. Okay. Now this one you might need the thimble for because you're gonna be going through several layers of fabric. Okay. So now I know it's really hard to see this because I'm using black thread. Now I'm going to do my back stitch, and for this one I'm going to go in through the bottom, down through the top, just because it's more layers that we're going through. As I come to my pin, I'm putting it into my pin cushion. So I'm still doing my back stitch. And I'm keeping my stitches close to that folded edge. Okay, so now I'm coming to the end. Okay, and then I'm just going to go around it again and knot it off. My needle goes through my loop. At least 2 times, and then I'm clipping. And then I'm going to do that to the same thing to the other side.